For years I've wanted to try a Disney cruise, and last week I finally did it. I thought I knew what to expect from a Disney cruise. I was cruising myself as a child with other cruise lines, and here's a photo of me at Disneyland, but this cruise was the biggest culture shock ever. I was definitely skeptical when I booked this cruise. I'd heard from my friends who love Disney that Disney cruises are great, but this cruise was the most expensive cruise that I've ever paid for, and it was about 3 times what I would normally pay for a cruise. I'd heard a lot about the Disney food being really good, the service being really good on a Disney cruise, but could it be 3 times as good as all of the other cruise lines to make up the cost? Or was it just a case of paying for that Disney brand? That is what I wanted to find out. When I saw that a Disney ship was coming to the UK, I thought, this is my chance. I didn't think that I was the target market for a Disney cruise, but I wanted to get on board to find out who is. Normally when you embark a cruise, you may, if you're lucky, be handed a glass of something bubbly, but you tend just to wander off and explore the ship on your own. On the Disney cruise, every family's name is announced and you're personally welcomed to the ship, and then Mickey and Minnie do a kind of dance to welcome you onto the cruise. It was definitely a good way to start the cruise because it really kind of set the scene, and there wasn't a single second on this cruise where I doubted which cruise line I was on. It was very, very Disney, as you would expect. The crew do this kind of welcome show over and over again. The kids seem to really love it, and once we had done that, we moved on to doing our muster drill. The muster drill is basically a compulsory safety drill that everybody has to do when they go on a cruise. They'll tell you things like where to go in an emergency, how to put on a life jacket. The muster drill on Disney is completed mostly with your phones, and Disney do have an app that we used for most things. The app was pretty good and it usually did what we wanted. We had to go on to find our muster station, and when we found the sign, we had to scan that with our phones. My phone had no problem with it, Mum's phone was having none of it, but luckily we could do the muster drill for both of us just on one phone, so it was okay. The Disney Magic was built in the late 1990s, which makes her pretty old by cruise ship standards. At the time, she would have been a new and very exciting cruise ship, but at the moment she's around 1/3 of the size of the biggest cruise ship in the world, so cruise ships do get much, much bigger than the Disney Magic. I will say that I loved not having to walk very far to the top deck, and wherever I was on the ship, I was never very far from my cabin. Personally, I'm a fan of the big, sparkly, new, exciting cruise ships, but I totally understand why some people would prefer this smaller ship. What's a lot more important for me than the actual size and the age of a ship is how the spaces work and if the ship has been looked after. I've been on cruise ships from the 1980s and the 1990s that feel a lot more modern than some cruise ships that are a lot newer but haven't been looked after as well. After completing our muster drill, we went straight to the top deck to take a selfie with the funnel. It is the iconic Disney funnels, and I actually managed to get a little piece of blue sky for this photo, which I definitely think was a little piece of Disney magic. We didn't have great weather for this cruise. Walking around the top decks, I quickly realised that this is where I could get the included soda from. If you were to order a soda in a bar, it would cost you money, but if you were to get it from the pool deck or with meals in the main restaurants, it is included. I made the most of that, I grabbed myself a soda, and we continued to explore the ship. On the top deck there is a swimming pool, there's lots of water slides, there's a sports court, and there's loads of places for seating. There was an adult only pool on board too, and there were a few other adult only spaces, which I thought was good because I had the feeling that I may need to retreat to the adult only spaces at some points during this cruise. I was a bit worried that I would feel totally overwhelmed by this cruise. When I cruise, I usually cruise to relax. I don't have any children myself, but I decided to embrace all things Disney for this cruise. It was only a 3-night cruise, but honestly, at that point, I don't think I quite realised what I was getting myself into. One of the most important things for me about cruising is food, and when we got on board we went to the buffet but it was closing, so we decided to get some food from the poolside grill. The buffet was closed a lot more than I would imagine. Sometimes it would be open 12 till 2 for lunch and then it would close until dinner time at around 6. I'm not used to that when I cruise with other cruise lines. On some cruise lines like MSC, the buffet is open 20 hours per day, and it's very rare that you'll go to a buffet on a mainstream cruise line and find that it is closed for hours at a time. It was a really nice space. There was loads of seating in there. The food was absolutely fantastic when you could get it. I just wish that I could have had more food in there because it was nice. It's definitely important to note that the room service is free. On a lot of cruise lines there will be a charge for room service, but on Disney it is completely free, and we did take advantage of that. I did order a pizza and cookies at one point. A thing to note though is if you order a soda through the room service, that will cost you money, and if you just run up to the pool deck, get a couple of sodas and come back to your cabin, that will be free. So that is what I usually did. I was thankful at that point that we weren't on a really large ship, because I was running back and forward to that soda quite a lot. We went to find our cabin next, and I have honestly never stayed in a cruise ship cabin quite like it. One thing that Disney seemed really good at is giving out upgrades. I booked an ocean view cabin and was upgraded to a balcony. Almost everybody I spoke to on board said that either they had been upgraded or they'd paid for an upgrade. My cruise was sailing at reduced capacity, so that may have had something to do with it, but it was very nice to have a balcony cabin. Not exactly balcony cabin weather for most of this cruise, but we made use of it whenever it wasn't raining, and we did occasionally get a bit of sunshine on our balcony, which was really nice. I'm usually more of an inside cabin kind of girl, but all of the inside cabins were not available at the time that I booked. Disney cruises sell out incredibly fast, and that's one of the reasons that they can charge as much as they do, because they're in no doubt that they're going to be able to fill their ships, and they do it time and time again. The cabin itself was pretty big, and our balcony was nice and big too. The cabin definitely deserves its own video, because there were quite a few surprises in this cabin, like the fact that I had to sleep on a sofa bed and the fact that the toilet is in a different room. I'm going to bring you a full video about that, so please just check that you're subscribed. YouTube's been doing the thing where it unsubscribes people that it thinks are robots, so just check that you're still subscribed. After exploring our cabin and wandering around the ship, it was time for dinner. Disney do something with dining that no other cruise line do, and that is called rotational dining. On most cruise lines, you'll either have a fixed dining time or you'll have kind of flexible dining where you just show up where you're hungry. On the Disney cruise, you have fixed time dining and also fixed location dining. I took a 3-night cruise, and there are 3 main restaurants on the Disney Magic, so each night we were assigned a different restaurant. Then the waiters and everybody who was in that restaurant together would move from restaurant to restaurant. No other cruise line does anything like that. I thought that the rotational dining worked really well, and having the same waiters definitely had benefits. They knew what we were drinking, and they would put your drinks down before you had even ordered it. As soon as I had finished my Coke Zero, it was a Coke ship, not a Pepsi ship, but oh well, the next one would arrive. I absolutely loved the fact that soft drinks were included with meals, and because we were only doing a 3-night cruise, we never had any kind of formal night or any kind of dress codes. This meant that I wore my jeans every night to dinner, and I do like dressing up for dinner sometimes, but sometimes it's so nice just to go in your jeans. It all felt very, very relaxed. The service in all of the restaurants was really good, and the waiters would really take the time to talk to the kids. Some of our dining experiences were definitely better than others, but my personal favourite was the dinner that we had in Animators Palate. I have never ever had a dinner quite like the dinner that we had in this restaurant, and if you had described this to me a couple of weeks ago, I don't know that I would have believed you. So we came into the restaurant and everything was black and white. When we sat down, we were faced with a pen and a piece of paper and asked to draw kind of a character within the little boxes. What happened throughout the meal is that our characters would come to life and they would dance on the screens around the room. The room would get all colourful and our characters would dance around. It was really clever how they did it. They put our characters not just on the screens but into the Disney movies, dancing with the Disney characters. They would play the music, and it was a really nice atmosphere in that restaurant. The actual food was pretty good, and I liked that there were multiple vegetarian options for the main. I would say that the food quality was pretty comparable to Princess or Celebrity or Royal Caribbean. After dinner we went into the theatre, and I think that theatre experience is exactly what a Disney cruise is all about. We watched Tangled the Musical, and it was definitely of Broadway quality. No expense was spared. There were loads of singers and dancers. The set design was amazing. In other shows, they even had things like snow and bubbles. It really was a proper Disney show, the type of show that you would expect from Disney. A word of warning though, I did find the theatre environment to be quite overwhelming. I would be kicked from behind by children. They would be dropping toys on me. Kids would be running around. I was trying to watch the show through Mickey ears, and I just found that quite overwhelming for me. I cruised outside of the school holidays, and I think that meant that we had more young children on board. Most of the children were aged between maybe 2 and 5, and it did get very loud at some points. I've spoken to so many Disney people since I've got back from this cruise and on the cruise who said that I should have chosen the late dining because there would be less children there, and therefore the early theatre show. But it is what it is. I didn't think about that before. I wouldn't dream of complaining that there were kids on the Disney cruise. It's just something to be aware of. It was very loud and overstimulating for me. I will say I did feel a bit out of place without my Mickey Mouse ears. Almost everybody had Mickey ears and they had personalised ears. Definitely, if you are taking a Disney cruise, get those ears before you go. When I got on board, there was only one pair left in the gift shop. They were $40 and I decided against it. But you can get all kinds of cool ones on the internet. If you want to go on a Disney cruise and you want to wear personalised t-shirts, matching bags, hats, ears, you name it, you will fit in perfectly. The Disney crowd are some of the nicest people that I've ever met, and they even decorate things like their doors. You won't find things like this on other cruise lines. Sometimes some people may put the occasional magnet on their door, but the amount of preparation that these doors must take before you get on your cruise, it is very impressive. The Disney fans love their Disney cruising. Every time we came back to our cabin, we found a towel animal and chocolates on the pillow. If you were to go back about 10 years ago, almost all mainstream cruise lines used to do that, but they've slowly been phasing it out. I personally quite like it, and the chocolate was really good. Your Britishism of the week is what this brand is called. Here in the UK, this is called Galaxy, and in the US, it looks like it is called Dove. It was originally created as Galaxy here in the UK, and it seems like for some reason they changed the name and it is Dove in other countries. Let me know if it is Dove or Galaxy where you're from. When I went to sleep on the first day of my cruise, I felt quite happy and quite content, but I still had some questions that I needed answering. I didn't know what the schedule on a sea day would be like for Disney. I didn't know if there would be many adult-only activities happening, and I didn't know if I could eat enough food to make back the cost of my cruise fare. The buffet was open for breakfast till 10:30, which was good because I'm not an early riser, and on other days we did go to the main kind of dining room for breakfast. I went there because you guys told me that I had to find the Mickey Waffles and have the Mickey Waffles for breakfast, and I did. It was very, very sickly sweet. I'm not normally a waffles for breakfast kind of person. I'm glad I found them. I'm glad I had them. Probably not something I'm going to do every day. It's going to be back to my regular toast, but it was nice to try the Mickey Waffles. So thank you everybody for your recommendations. Very strong recommendations to try those Mickey Waffles. Despite the bad weather on our cruise, plenty of people went swimming, plenty of people went on the water slides. I think it's funny to see how the crew are dressed up here, but in the UK, for us, this is still swimming weather. They'd constantly be showing movies on the big TV by the pool. They'd also be showing movies in the theatre, and if you could get the TV to work in your cabin, you could watch movies on there too. The schedule on the sea day was made up almost entirely of trivia, waving at characters and movies. It was a little bit strange because of COVID and social distancing. You couldn't get close to the characters, so photos would be a little bit far away. A bit of a shame that the kids couldn't kind of put their arms around Mickey Mouse and things like that, but it is what it is. Not much you can do about it. One thing that I really did miss on this ship was live music. Of course, there was Disney music playing around the ship constantly, and they did have a little bit of music, but I personally quite like, cover bands and singers, and you would very, very rarely wander around and just find someone playing some music, and I quite like that. Most of the kids will be enjoying their time in the kids clubs, of course. There were kids clubs for kids of all ages. I actually went to kids clubs myself when I started cruising with Norwegian Cruise Line. I was a child and I absolutely loved it. I'm sure that the kids on this cruise had so much fun dancing and meeting the characters and making all kinds of crafts. They're definitely kept busy, and there's so much for kids to do on a Disney cruise for obvious reasons. When I was wandering around the Promenade deck, I came across this area which I thought was really cool. That's definitely my nerdy kind of ship side coming out, but I've never been on a promenade where you have things like this just open for the public to see. The Promenade deck was also the jogging track, so people would be running around there, people would be walking, and we did quite a few laps of the promenade during this cruise. I like a promenade that goes all the way round. Despite the cold UK weather, Disney did put on a show on the pool deck called Frozen at Sea, which is the most perfect name for this. It was basically like a big children's festival featuring Anna and Elsa and Olaf and everybody from Frozen. There were so many people there. It was so cool to see everybody together, everyone braving the cold weather. I'm sure that this would be better in the Caribbean, but everybody enjoyed it and it was a lot of fun. In the evening, there would often be adult-only trivia, and sometimes this was not Disney related. I did see 90s music trivia on there at one point, I think, and a few other things. There were a couple of places on board that were adult only, but we didn't really spend too much time in there. I tend to like to be out and about and just seeing what's going on a cruise ship, especially filming things for this channel, rather than spending my time in the pub. If we were on a cruise that included drinks, or I had a drinks package though, that may have been different and I might have spent more time in the pub. There isn't much late night entertainment happening on a Disney cruise because most people are asleep, which makes perfect sense. We would watch quite a few Disney movies on the TV in the cabin when the TV did work. For me, this cruise was was great because it kind of felt like an undercover mission to find out who a Disney cruise is for. I spoke to so many people when I was on board and so many people since I've come back who say that they love Disney cruising for the Disney cruising community and how well they're looked after and how well the children are looked after on the cruise. I very much came at this cruise from a cruise perspective as opposed to from a Disney perspective, looking at the price that I paid, the experience I had, and what I could get on other cruise lines. For me, the Disney thing just doesn't add up and it's not the cruise line for me. But I met so many people on board who absolutely love Disney cruising, and I think this just proves the point to me. There's definitely a cruise line for every person, but not every cruise line is for every person, which is good. Life would be so unbelievably dull if we all liked the same things. To put this into perspective for me, my next cruise is over double the length of my Disney cruise and it is quite a lot cheaper. It includes flights to Spain, transfers, luggage, all-inclusive tips and all-inclusive drinks including alcohol. For me, it is a no-brainer. A Disney cruise is not worth it for me, but it is worth it to so many people. Of course, you'll never get any of those Disney characters, any of the Disney entertainment, any of that Disney magic on any other cruise line. So really it just comes down to what is that Disney magic worth to you? Is the Disney magic worth the price? For me personally, no, but for loads of people I met, absolutely yes. There was one thing though that I found a bit strange about this Disney cruise, and that is how Disney deal with automatic gratuities and tipping. It seems as though most people, even if they love cruising with Disney, find this thing a little bit strange. So watch this video next and let me know what you think.